Hello everybody! Before we begin, I would like to let you all know that I have a book out. It is called Not Quite Dead, and it is the story of a woman whose fiancé passed away a year ago, having dreams where he tells her that he's still alive and trying to use said dreams to get him back. It is available on Amazon in both paperback and ebook formats, so if you've ever wanted to support me financially, then this is your opportunity to do so. Link is in the description. Hey gang, it's Squill, and now that I've gotten my gripes with Fionna and Cake Season 2 out of the way, it's time we begin discussing its episodes. Much like with Season 1, we will be going through the season episode by episode, analyzing it from start to finish. So let's waste no time and begin with the premiere. The Hare and the Sprout is the first episode of Fionna and Cake's second season. The meaning of this title is pretty obvious. The Hare is Fionna and the Sprout is Huntress Wizard. This episode begins with a mini recap of the events of Season 1 told by Astrid. It's a fun way to catch people up in case they don't quite remember what happened in Season 1, and the art style used for it is very cute. About half the episodes this season use different art styles for their cold opens, making for some very memorable sequence to begin their episodes. And it's a cool way to incorporate guest animation like the original show often did, but adapted for a 10-episode format. I really love the hard cut to PB asking where Finn is. Although they don't get a ton in this episode, it felt so good to see PB and Marcy again, especially since they were barely in Season 1. And it's cute that Simon's living with them now. Definitely a far healthier environment for him than the human city. One nitpicky thing I will say though, is that it's a bit of a bummer we still don't get a Simon and Marcy heart-to-heart scene. One where Simon gets to open up a bit to Marcy about his issues. The fact that we didn't get that in Season 1 was one of my biggest criticisms of that season, and it's a shame this season doesn't rectify that. Although a scene like this would have made more sense happening in Season 1, so it's more of a fault with that season than this one. Anyways, when Simon mentions Finn visiting Huntress Wizard, Marcy comments that they are back on again, suggesting that the two have an on-again, off-again relationship. This is later semi-confirmed by Finn in a flashback in The Bear and the Rose. This tracks with Huntress Wizard's very non-committal attitude seen back in Flute Spell. As we'll explore throughout the season, Huntress Wizard clearly does love and care about Finn, but fears that vulnerability will make her weak. After this moment, we cut to Fionna lying in bed. This shot here is very symbolic. While Fionna appears to be happier here than she is in Season 1, her apartment is still a bit of a mess, showing that there are still parts of herself she needs to work on. It's a cool detail that Fionna can now watch other shows besides Cheers, now that her world isn't in Simon's head. This includes a Berserk-like anime that will be relevant later in the episode. We then get the reveal that Cake has her own apartment right next to Fionna's. It's a nice way to set up Cake's arc this season about trying to be more quote-unquote human. Fionna and Cake living right next to each other is also a good Fionna world adaptation of Finn and Jake living together in the treehouse. After the intro, we get a sequence of Fionna picking up some stuff she needs and interacting with people she used to work for. Buck Pudding is such a random character pull. It took me forever to figure out who this was supposed to be. These moments do a good job establishing Fionna's arc this season, highlighting the self-hatred she feels for the person she used to be, and how she's begun to overcorrect for it. We also get a very bizarre scene of a little girl being obsessed with Cake's stretching abilities. It reminds me a bit of this scene from Helpers, in which a human child gets very excited about Jake being a talking dog. But this is taken to a really weird extreme, and it's really funny. After this, we get a reintroduction to Queenie, who still hates Fionna despite her literally saving her life at the end of last season. Honestly, you gotta respect the hater energy. This scene does a good job playing into Fionna's insecurities, that even after saving the world, deep down, she's still the same person she was before. We also see in this scene what appears to be a Fionna world version of Astrid, who's also a big Fionna fan. After this, Fionna and Cake visit Mkron and his candy shop. I like Cake's human disguise, even though I highly doubt Mkron fell for it for even a second. I like Cake and Mkron's little relationship. It's very cute, and I think this episode does a good job setting it up, even if I think the show kinda ends up wasting its potential. It's cool that the show commits to Mkron being mute, and that they don't make a big deal out of how he and Cake communicate. Just a nice casual portrayal of a disability that isn't seen all too often in shows and film. While Fionna and Cake are here, we get another completely random character pull, that being Madam Cutter, the Fionna world equivalent to Sir Slicer. I love her design and her thick Russian accent. After Fionna leaves, she gets a call from Simon in what is probably my favorite scene of the episode. I like that Simon's fatherly dynamic to Fionna from last season is still maintained here. Their entire conversation here is just so damn sweet. I really like Simon mentioning feeling awkward around PB given that he used to kidnap her. I kinda wish the show actually explored this side of Simon and PB's dynamic, as we don't really get any mention of this after this scene. I also like that Simon clearly still has trauma from the way magic affected him. He'll never be rid of that trauma completely, but he's definitely in a better place now compared to where he was at the start of season 1. After the phone call ends, the show actually keeps us with Simon. When we first see this grave, my immediate thought was that it was something Simon made for Betty, so it being Choose Goose made for a really funny reveal. I love him mockingly placing an orange on his grave, claiming that nothing rhymes with orange. Goose being the one person Simon just outwardly hates is really funny to me. But stealing the orange from Chugles' grave is none other than the Vampire King in his lion form. It's such a random cameo, especially given he has no real significance in this scene. I guess it might be to foreshadow his reappearance in The Bird and the Clock. But seen hunting the Vampire King is none other than Huntress Wizard. It's a fun little reintroduction to her, getting a glimpse of her in her element before being taken to Fionna World. She doesn't get a lot in this episode, which would be fine if she wasn't also sidelined for most of the season, but I like what we do get with her here. I suppose I should also comment on Ashley Birch's voice for Huntress Wizard this season. She doesn't really sound that close to Jenny Slate, but I think she does a good job. It's a different voice, but it still feels like Huntress Wizard, and she gives a great performance overall this season. But I wouldn't say I prefer her to Jenny Slate, who, even after this season, I still view as the definitive Huntress Wizard voice. There's something about her casual, dry delivery, juxtaposed against pretty much everything else about Huntress Wizard, that makes Jenny Slate's performance so memorable to me, and that, unfortunately, Ashley Birch isn't quite able to capture. It also doesn't help that I don't really think Huntress Wizard is given that strong material this season, so while Birch does a great job with what she's given, it's not quite enough to eclipse Jenny Slate in my mind. Still kind of a bummer that Jenny Slate didn't get to return for what is easily Huntress Wizard's biggest role in the entire franchise. After getting reintroduced to Huntress Wizard, we cut to Finn, who is very clearly not doing too hot. And as we see, this is caused by the scratch on his back given to him by the Heart of the Forest back in Simon Petrikov. It's a cool way to bridge the first 2 seasons. The scratch on Finn's back is such a minor detail in season 1, so it being the main threat of season 2 is pretty cool. That being said, I don't think I love saving Finn being the main goal of this season. On one hand, Finn being on his literal deathbed should feel like big stakes. That's Finn. But because of Together Again, we know that Finn doesn't die until he is an old man, so that kinda deflates the stakes of this season. And some of the ways in which the season tries to raise the tension feel rather cheap to me. And while Finn does get some good stuff this season, the fact that a season focused on Huntress Wizard doesn't really get to explore her dynamic with Finn all too much is a bit of a bummer to me. Going back to the cave though, I do love Finn hallucinating all the animals as a Huntress Wizard harem. Whatever kind of freaky shit Finn and Huntress Wizard are doing, I do not want to know. We cut back to Fionna World, in which we are introduced to the Sweet Spot. I like that it's just some random corner they found that they decided to make their spot. It's really funny. Much like Huntress Wizard, Gary and Marshall were both recast this season to, in my opinion, mixed results. I actually really like Chris Collins as Marshall. He doesn't sound exactly like Donald Glover, but he's so close that there are times where I forget it's a different voice entirely. It's also cool that Marshall's actually allowed to sing this season. Harvey Gillen as Gary, on the other hand, just sounds very off to me. He's not doing a bad job, of course. The voice itself is fine in a vacuum, but it just sounds way too different from how he sounded in season 1. It's funny, of all the recasts, I feel like Gary is the one I should be the least bothered by, considering how many actors have played him throughout the course of the franchise. I guess with Andrew Rannells in season 1, I sort of accepted him as the new voice of the character, given that he's an entirely different version from what we saw in the original show. So this version of Gary also getting recasted, and that voice sounding nothing like the voice from season 1, just feels so jarring to me. Anyways, we get a bit of foreshadowing in this scene when Hunter gives Fionna a pot of roses that had been sprouting up all throughout town. They give Fionna a cut on her hand that looks exactly like the one on Finn's back. Speaking of foreshadowing, this is followed by a Fionna dream sequence reminiscent of the Berserk-like anime she was watching at the beginning of the episode. We see a green wolf in the background of this scene, which is obviously representative of Huntress Wizard, given that she was depicted as a wolf with the exact same design back in Flute Spell. In the dream, Fionna is trying to protect this tower, but accidentally kills her friends in the process. This is foreshadowing to later in the season when Fionna hurts Gary and Marshall while trying to save the sweet spot. Among the severed heads of her friends, we also see Martin's, indicating that Fionna still feels guilt and trauma around his death in the star. Speaking of which, we also see this hairless chicken thing. This briefly appeared back in the Winter Cane, foreshadowing Fiona's trauma regarding his death too. The dream is interrupted, however, by Queenie waking Fionna and Cake up to reveal that she owns the sweet spot. This sets up Fiona's goal for the season, that being to win back the sweet spot. It's a very mundane goal, and I've seen some people criticize it for that, but it actually works really well for me. Because it's not actually the sweet spot that matters. It's Fiona's character journey and her place in this world now that she's grown to care about it. How her new identity as a hero changes the way she views herself and her place in society. How her selfless desire to help people has sort of looped around on itself to becoming self-serving. Does she actually want to help people out of the kindness of her heart, or does she just want to be seen as a good person? So the way I see it, the goal being something as mundane as saving the rec center actually works to service Fiona's character arc rather than detract from it. And in fact, I think making it something of a grander scale would have taken away from what Fiona's character journey this season is actually about. That's it for the Fionna side of the episode, but we still got a little bit more ooh left with Simon teaching out Wiz Arts. It's a fun little development for him. I honestly would have loved to see an entire episode of Simon at Wizard City. It's awesome getting to see Simon embrace his dorky side. Also cool getting to see the Wizard City kids again. I like their new aged up designs. Also like the implication that PB and Marcy are Pep's moms, very cute. This scene is cut short, however, as Huntress Wizard drops in with a still very sick Finn. Simon gives us a brief recap of what happened to Finn in season 1, and the episode ends on a cliffhanger as Huntress Wizard is about to be attacked by the same bear that attacked Finn in the heart of the forest. And that was the Hare and the Sprout, and honestly, I think I like this one a little bit more upon rewatch. While I definitely enjoyed the episode upon first viewing, I think it's easy to watch the Fionna world scenes and get kinda antsy to get back to Ooh. You know, it's been so long since we've seen most of them for a significant amount of time, it's hard not to. But I think with the context of the entire season, it's easier to appreciate how this one lays the groundwork for Fiona's character journey going forward. It's not a big or flashy episode, nor is it one of the best of the season, but I think it's a strong premiere, and I like it more than season 1's first episode. Please let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments, and join me for episode 2, The Crocodile Who Bit a Log. Squill out.